Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker. On this week's episode, I'm going to share with you some news from Author World, as well as translations for readers who might hear author speak and wonder, what in the world are we talking about? Now, let's start the show. As some of you already know, I was at the Novelist Inc. conference the last week of September in St. Pete Beach, Florida. And if you didn't know I was there, you might have recognized that a number of other authors that you follow or are interested in were there, because there was quite a group of us. Novelist Inc. is an international organization for multi-published authors, most of us popular fiction. It's really a professional networking organization for career novelists. And I belonged to the group for a long time. I went to the second conference, and we got to be somewhere around 30 at this point. Maybe more. And I have missed only one conference since then. I couldn't get out to San Diego one year when I was working for the Washington Post. It is my go-to conference. It's my don't miss conference. It is all people who are published. There's a sense of being colleagues there, and we usually have, as we did this year, a high level of both conversation, and the people who present to us recognize that we are knowledgeable about our field and keep up with things. So we get some really good information, and it's a lot of fun. There is that too. So I see a lot of people year after year, good friends, and that's important too. So why do you care as readers? Well, it struck me this year that probably the number one topic of conversation was how we as authors can have more readers introduced to our work to find out if we are a good author-reader match. In many ways, shapes, and forms, that was the core of what we were talking about. So I thought it might interest you folks to know how much that occupies us as authors. We had some terrific speakers, including two whom I hope to have on the show after the first of the year, Joanna Penn, who writes as J.F. Penn, and David Gaughran. Now, they were talking about the business side, but we would have them on the show talking about their author sides, and they're both very interesting, and I enjoyed talking with them. We also had a fascinating two talks by Professor Jennifer Barnes, who focuses on fiction and cognition, and talks about why we as readers are so caught by stories, and then how authors can best serve it up to readers so that you really love our stories. And for a change of pace here, really enjoyed listening to Jeff Simon, who's a federal forensic investigator, talking about autopsies. Now, that might not sound real appealing to a lot of you, but it's fascinating for those of us writing mysteries, thrillers, suspense, romantic suspense, anything that crosses over with and has information about law enforcement, because we want to get the information right. We don't want to yank somebody out of the story by having them go, no, wait a minute, that's wrong. So I love sessions like that. And Jeff Simon was very good. So if you read my books, you might be reading more about not the actual autopsy, but some of the things around it. And let's see, what else? Oh, I spent time with representatives from Nook, Barnes & Noble's Nook, Kobo, and BookBub. Thank heavens this year, the BookBub folks and myself and some friends, we had lunch together this time. Previous years, they have made me go to breakfast. This is not nice. I'm not a morning person. And so lunch worked much better for me. Might actually have been coherent and had a great time with all of those folks. They're really terrific. And also spent some time with another group of people called Draft to Digital. Now, you've probably heard of Nook and Kobo and BookBub. If you haven't heard of BookBub, it's a place that aggregates free and discount books, and then sends out a newsletter. And so it features some of those sales in their newsletters, and you can indicate which genres you're interested in. And so I recommend checking them out. But back to Draft to Digital, that's one that you as readers probably won't be as familiar with. We also call it D to D. So if I slip and call it D to D, you'll know what I'm talking about. Possibly you've had some contact uh, inadvertently or unknowingly with them through something called books to read links. I use them on a lot of my books so that you can click on that link, and then the first time it will come up and it will show all the options of which stores the book is available in. And when you click on one of those links, say you want to go to the Apple bookstore, you then subsequently will be sent to that store. So it knows which store you chose previously. And so then the next time you don't have that display of many outlets. You go directly to where you wanted to go. So that is a service that D2D offers, and it offers to people who work with them, authors who work with them, and authors who don't. And I think it's a great service both to the authors and to you guys, the readers, because it directs you much more quickly, and it means we don't have to list 47 links in a post. It's just the one clean link. So they made several announcements at NINC, and we as authors were really excited because one of the things they announced was a multi-author payment management service. Yeah, that sounds exciting, doesn't it? Everybody's going woohoo out there in authors love readers land. So I can hear you saying, what on earth does that mean, and why in the world would it excite anybody? Well, when you guys see these box sets by multiple authors, what we've had to do in the past, and I will tell you, I am usually credited with being the one who came up with this idea way back in, it seems so weird to say way back in 2012 or 2013. I can't even remember now which year. It was a compilation called Heart Stealers with myself and three other contemporary romance authors, and we each put a book into it. And I won't go into all the old history about why we did it, but it was an experiment to see what would happen. Well, kaboom! Lots happened with it. And now you see kind of box sets with 20 authors, and it's just ridiculous. But it started out as a really good idea. However, what we have had to do to this point with these box sets is have somebody be in charge, because the book can only be up on these various sites under the account of one person. So all the money would come to one author, or if you had a publisher for it, or an aggregator, or an organizer, it went to that one person's account. But all the ones I was involved in, it was authors. So the money went to one author's account, and that author was then responsible for keeping track of the income and dispersing it to the various authors who were involved in the set. And when we started it, and then we did a couple box sets, a group of authors, and I did that were based on themes like marriage of convenience and reunion stories and bad boys, and I don't even remember. It's been too many years. um, I was what we called the financial manager for several of those, and it was truly a pain. First of all, you're responsible for other people's money, which always makes me want to be extraordinarily careful about it. And you had to do this accounting basically every month and deal with the money and keep track of all that. And then your taxes, you had to claim that income and then show the expense of sending the money out to all these other people. Um, it was a pain. It was really a pain. So the idea that they would how they would take in the money and then send it directly to the authors. They would do the dividing, and yet we'd still be able to see the full accounting. So this is a sort of thing that gets authors all excited and hooping and hollering at conferences. Okay, that might sound like we're pretty boring, but we're not. We're truly not. We have a good time, including we had the last night, Saturday night wrap up karaoke, which was in fact sponsored by Draft to Digital. And another little piece of news that connects with Novelist Inc., but also those of you who listen to Authors Love Readers will remember Mark Leslie, who was on. And in his business side persona, he has now joined Draft to Digital. And they're a great group of guys. I know there are also women there who work there because I've dealt with some in customer service, but the ones who come to the conference are guys. So we fully expect even more and better karaoke from the Draft to Digital guys at the next Novelist Inc. conference. Oh, another topic from Novelist Inc. that came up. I know it came up because I kept bringing it up. I don't know if anybody else was upset about this or conscious of it. When you, as readers, unsubscribe from an author's newsletter, that's totally understandable. I don't think there's an author out there who doesn't understand. Your interests can change. You can be getting too much email. I've had notes from wonderful, wonderful readers who, one woman said she'd had twins and she just couldn't deal. And somebody else had, they were changing jobs but they didn't want me to feel bad. They were going to resubscribe after their life settled down. That is so sweet. And it is, way beyond the call of duty to let the author know why you have unsubbed and that there have been extraordinary circumstances. That's really kind of you. It's not by any way required. You guys sign up for newsletters for whatever reason, that's fine. Including if you've been involved with a giveaway and you signed up to get the access to the giveaway, and then you're going to unsubscribe. That's not our favorite. We'd rather have you subscribe because you're interested in our books or at least willing to give them a try. But okay, it's fair too. It's out there. What really bothers me is that I get a certain number of unsubscribed people who will say that my newsletters were spam or that they want to report it as abuse. Now, I am very careful about not having anybody on my list who did not sign up. And I can see in the history when and through what means each person subscribed. I don't often look because it's kind of, why would you keep track of that, especially for individual people? But when people say they're unsubscribing because I've sent spam, I do look. I want to make absolutely, positively, 100% sure that I haven't missed something somehow and people are coming onto my list without intending to. And I have yet to find an instance in which that happened. Every time I have checked, and I have, more than, I think the last time I counted, or last time I looked, there were 40,000 people who had signed up to my newsletter list. So in 40,000, I have never found somebody who was in fact receiving spam from me. And yet people report the newsletters for spam. So what I'm saying is, please, when you or if you unsubscribe from anybody's list, be fair. Check, make absolutely sure that you have in fact been spammed or abused. I take it really seriously. In addition to that, if you report it as spam or abuse, because that's easier, or because you're irked, or you've gotten too much email, so this has got to be spam, and you're not taking the responsibility that you signed up for the list. That you're free to change your mind, but you signed up. So have the courtesy to unsubscribe without harming the author or your fellow readers. Now, how, you're wondering, does it hurt the author and the fellow readers? Well, it hurts the author because we get a score for being a good sender, a good emailer. It hurts your fellow readers because the email service providers like Yahoo and Google Mail and all the rest of them keep track. And if somebody is reported as sending spam, they then will make it harder for those emails to get through to anyone on their service. So if a reader who is on Google Mail gets my newsletter, decides they are, they're getting too many newsletters, they don't really like my books, they want to get off, and they're irked and impatient, and they mark it as spam. That means that anybody who is on my list who does want to get the book and they're on Google Mail is less likely to receive it. And it's not just that the emails will go into your spam or promotions files or folders. You won't see them at all. They block them at a point before it gets to you. So this other reader who marked spam can be stopped for their newsletter, can be stopping you from receiving that author's newsletter. And that's just not fair. And fair is always one of my hot buttons. So please, if you unsubscribe, do not, unless you are absolutely sure, do not report it as spam or abuse. And if any of you want to unsubscribe from my newsletter after crying, and no, I'm kidding, I will email me and I can tell you when and how you signed up. I suspect a lot of authors could do that. If you really think it's spam, I will give you that information and show you that it's not. Okay, so I would really appreciate your consideration for the authors and your fellow readers in avoiding spam and abuse. There is lots of other news. For one, if you haven't heard, Kobo and Walmart have teamed up in the United States. So Kobo is now Walmart's outlet for ebooks. And that also means that Walmart is Kobo's books and mortar outlet. And you can go into Walmart stores, and many of them will have displays about ebooks, and that is a way for you to see some of the books and order them. You can get gift cards at Walmart for ebooks, and they are then served by Kobo, which is a lot of people in the United States aren't as familiar with it. It's very big in Canada. It's also worldwide. They have on our display, the dashboard for the authors, they have a map that shows where people have bought your book, and so you see it month to month. I love I love looking at the map and seeing where people have bought my book from them, or books from that month. And then if you manipulate the inputs, you can see for all the time you've been on Kobo. And the last time I counted, it was something like 72 countries. It's so cool. I just was blown away by that. Um, However, Kobo has not had a huge presence previously in the United States, but now they will. And Walmart will also be selling the devices, the readers that Kobo makes, including one that's waterproof. I have my eye on that one. Um, I'm going to, excuse me, I do have Walmart links on my books on my website, and you can find them. So you can find them on the Walmart website. You can find them on Kobo. Um, I think it's a great thing, and we will have to see. It's just started. It's I think less than a month, and it took a little while for them to get all the books populated because there was a whole lot of books to get onto the Walmart site. But it seems to be working very well now, and I'm excited about this. Um, so I'd love to hear from you if you have spotted books in Walmart, and how you feel about that. If you're shopping at Walmart, you can get ebooks now. Yay! So, another piece of news is you can also get ebooks on my author store. On my website, it says ebook store, and you can go there and buy directly from me. This was a lot of work to get up. It's been a lot of fun, but the ebook store is up now, and I'm so excited to have the ebook store available and operable, and there will be a lot more fun things coming with it. Um, it allows me to do um, coupons and deals that I could not otherwise do. So give me a little while to get this set up, but I want to do it so that if you buy one book in a series, you get 25% off on the next book in the series. And I can offer those deals. It gives me more flexibility and more autonomy in being able to offer books to my readers and offer deals and have the flexibility. I keep coming back to flexibility. And that I think is why a lot of authors are doing this. And as I said, I am not by any means the first, way not the first, or the only. Lots of authors are doing this. We run into a lot of frustrations with some of the sellers, and we just don't have as much ability to serve the reader as well as we would like to. It also gives you guys usually a little better deal because we're not paying that intermediate, the retailer, the percentage. So we can offer some of that savings to you folks. It does cost us a little more in upkeep and some other fees. There are fees associated with it and all that good stuff. But I think it's a great opportunity. It's not going to replace the retailers anytime soon, but I also think of it as insurance because I guess I've been around the publishing business long enough and I'm skeptical enough that I think there will come a time that one or more of the retailers will go berserk and just no longer be a viable place for authors to sell their books. And I want to have this in place and have you all be familiar with it and have it operating. So you might look for ebook stores on other authors' websites and explore, see what's there, check it out. At one point, might there be print books available that way too? Yeah, that's possible. That becomes more difficult because of taxing and shipping, and the tax situation in particular is crazy making. So we'll have to see how good my mental health is before I would try to take that on. And that brings us to another piece of news. Some of the things that happen that I hope you don't see. I hope it's not a big disruption. But one of the things that happened is those of us who have print books and were print on demand books and had them through Amazon. It was a company that Amazon owned called CreateSpace. Well, they are replacing that with something called Kindle Direct Publishing Print. And that sounds like, should be a nice, smooth transition. Well, Not exactly, and it's been pretty crazy, and that's another thing. My assistant Kay has probably borne the brunt of this, and it's just nuts, but hopefully that has smoothed out a little bit. We're still my print books, which are mostly the Wyoming Wildflower series and then the Dead in Wyoming series and, Proof of Innocence, are available for sale. We're having some difficulties with the display of the information, but we're working that out, and that's more cosmetic. Um, Crazy making, but cosmetic. Crazy making seems to be a theme in all this. Another little bit of news. This is specific to Patricia McLinn books. Although in the context that one of the other big discussions at Novelist Inc. was audiobooks and how the popularity has been increasing. Now, it started from such a small number that you can say the percentage has grown in these huge percentage growth, but the raw numbers have been small. Well, now the raw numbers are reaching a point where people are really noticing. And I love audiobooks, especially for road trips. I it keeps me it dampens down road rage, I find. Um, I not really road rage, but I have been known to say things to other drivers. I don't do anything dangerous, and I actually can't say all that much because if I start saying rude things to other drivers, my dog tries to come over my shoulder from the back seat. I think my mother trained her. So, but audiobooks distract me from the poor driving of other drivers, and I love them for road trips. And more people are listening to them in various ways on the go, not just in the car, but walking and having them in their headphones and while they're doing dishes and all the things, many of the same ways that you listen to podcasts now, which are another way. I love to listen to the podcasts while I'm cooking and doing laundry and doing all those things where your hands are occupied and your eyes often, but you can be listening to a great story or a great podcast. Well, my issue with the audiobooks is a couple things. There's been another company that Amazon controls that produced some of my early audiobooks, and I am now trying to produce audiobooks where I can deal with the distribution through um, a non-exclusive contract. But I had the narrator for my first 3 Caught Dead in Wyoming books told me that she is retiring from narrating, and I'm heartbroken, especially because she says she wants to write a book, and I'm saying, "Don't. Don't do that. Keep narrating. Don't be crazy," because, again, we come back to that theme of crazy making. Um but she's packed away all her narrating gear, all her electronic stuff, and she says, "Nope, she's done narrating." So I am now in the process of looking for a new narrator. I know folks who listen to audiobooks don't like that when a series changes, but I have no choice. It's particularly difficult because the Caught Dead in Wyoming books are first person. My sleuth Elizabeth Margaret Danaher, and a lot of it is her voice. It's her sense of humor. It's her timing. It's her background in journalism. So I am working really hard trying to find the right narrator and pay ahead because you have to pay for these ahead of time and then hope that they earn back the money that you've invested. So that's where we are with audiobooks. I think I've covered all the news items for now. So, for the second part of this podcast, I wanted to give you a little more information on author speak, a few more translations for what in the world we're talking about. And a couple of those are acronyms. The first is BICHAC, BICHAC. H-O-K, often used as a verb. Bickhocking. You should be bickhocking. That stands for butt in chair, hands on keyboard, which is the required position to actually produce some writing. I suppose unless some people dictate. I can't do that, but some people do. But for me to actually produce words on the screen, to advance on a book, I have to be bickhocking. Another one is, I don't know how in the world you'd pronounce this, Wurnaw, W-R-B-N-A-W. For me, that stands for writing related, but not actually writing. And that stands for all of the business stuff we do, marketing, taxes, accounting, ordering supplies, arranging for a book cover, going back and forth with a book cover designer, giving my assistant all the bad news of the things I need her to do, to do something that went wrong, and can you fix this, and writing emails, and having contact with the retailers, and even writing the newsletter, responding to emails from readers, which is fun, but it's not actually writing. So there is a whole lot associated with being an author that is not actually writing. I suppose a lot of folks know that about their job. Anybody who creates anything, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be created and kept running that is not the actual creation. And sometimes it makes you feel more productive because those are shorter term satisfactions in getting those things done. You can put them on a to-do list and you can check them off, and they're more concrete and smaller, as opposed to you write on your to-do list, write 2 books. That doesn't get checked off real fast. So it can be more satisfying in some ways. Other times it's really frustrating because you want to get back to the book. You have a scene in your head, you have a snatch of dialogue, whatever it is. You're dying to get back to that book, but you have to take care of all this other stuff because of time restrictions or whatever it is. You have to do it. So we should come up. Bickhocking sounds so good and makes so much sense. Wurnaw for W-R-B-N-A-W isn't quite so good. If anybody has ideas on how we can make that sound good, let me know. Okay, in books, characters often talk about people. And we most of us refer to them as people rather than characters. And I guess it's because that's how they really feel to us. When you hear somebody's voice in your head, as I do, it's hard to think that they aren't real. I mean, we know they're not real. We truly know they're not real, but they seem more like people than they do like characters. And I guess saying they're people also makes us treat them as people. You can't shove around other people the way you could fictional characters. That sounds like you can do whatever you want to them. But when they are really strong, they can't be pushed around, or they'll push you back, or they'll just stop cooperating, which is even worse. That's just horrifying. We also talk about hero and heroine, especially in romance, because they are the leads of that book. I once had an editor say to me that if you don't have strong characters in romance, you don't have a book. You have to have that really compelling and empathetic for a character that the reader can empathize with to to have a successful romance. More generally, we'll talk about protagonists and antagonists, and you can have multiple protagonists in a book, and those are the folks that the readers are pulling for, and the antagonist is the one or multiples that are preventing the characters from having their goal. And goal is talked about, or motivation is talked a lot about too in writing. It doesn't have to be. Well, I have a little bit different view about this from a lot of people, because I think the motivation of the character is usually this is what they think they want, but there's often something that is different that is what they really need. So as they pursue their want, they are acquiring skills that will actually eventually get them to what they truly need. Um, I'm getting into writer speak. Sorry about that. Okay, conflict. I want to make we of, often talk about that, and I've heard it in some of the episodes of Authors Love Readers, and I want to make really clear to the readers that we're not talking necessarily about violence at all. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's mental, emotional conflict, but it can be it I go back to all the time of A Christmas Carol, and you think about what's the conflict there. Well, it is really it's against Christmas. You know, he is in conflict with Christmas, and Christmas is represented by his nephew, by the people collecting for the charity, by people having good spirits, by Bob Cratchit. Um, all of that is representing Christmas and that openness to other people. So conflict does not have to be person to person, doesn't have to be violent. It can be much broader. Um, watch some movies and or read better yet, read books and look at where if you're interested in this. You don't need to do this to really read books. Sometimes if you're reading a book and it's not quite working for you, check out something like that about whether the conflict is strong enough or compelling enough or expressed clearly enough to carry the story. Something else I've heard in the podcasts are a lot of elements about time. There is what I call story time. A lot of us call story time, and that's um, like I do series, and the characters age, but they don't age in real time. It may take me 9 months to write a book that takes place in 3 days, and in story time, books that are coming out in over a period of 6 years. I'm thinking specifically of my Caught Dead in Wyoming books. First one was out in 2012, and there are now 7 books out, and that has covered from, it's covered a year from April 1 to April 1. So the story time, it's a year. In real time, it's about 6 years. um, Also, in story time, it's really important for the author to be aware of using things like flashback. That's where if you're you're reading the story and they're in their current time in story time, and they're going along. Say it's April, and Elizabeth, my sleuth, is getting to know her coworkers in the first book, and she flashes back to the previous December and when she did her last on air report for the network. Now, I did not actually use a flashback there. I didn't take you to that scene. I just referred to it. But if I had taken you to the scene, that would be a flashback. So you may see those in books, and we talk about those sometimes on the podcast. And more generally, and probably what you're more familiar with, is prologue and epilogue. And that again is uh, things that are happening outside of the main storyline's story time. So there's a jump in time from that prologue to the main story, and then there's a jump in time from the main story to the epilogue. And that brings up another time element that we talk about, we authors talk about quite a bit, called the sagging middle. Um, and that does not have to do with us spending most of our lives bick-hocking with our butts in chairs. Although it could, actually, it could apply to that too. But a lot of times in a book, the natural rhythm for a lot of authors is to start off strong, and they're excited about the story and the idea. And then you get into the middle and you're thinking about all the things you can't do because you made these other decisions. And so you're narrowed down and you have to accomplish this and you have to do that. And then when you get closer to the end, it's like, okay, all this stuff is coming together. I got it. I can pull it together. This is going to work. And plus that I'm on a deadline. So you push through at the end. Now, as you might have heard, and as I've talked about on other podcasts, I don't write chronologically. So my sagging middle is in the process. It's the middle of the process, but that might not, in fact, it's almost never the end of or the middle of the book. I usually start a story with something happening in the middle, which is my really sneaky way of avoiding sagging middle in a book, and yet it still catches me in the process. There's a point in the middle where I'm thinking, okay, I've hit this before, but this time it's going to defeat me. This time, this really isn't going to come out as a book. This one is just not going to work, and it's pretty pitiful period in writing. You got to talk to other authors and rely on them to not only remind you, because you've gone through this again, and yet you think, I don't know, this one just isn't working. So that to me is the sagging middle, that afflicts me much worse than the sagging middle of the book, as some other authors feel that's more difficult for them. Okay, we also talk about, and this also bots. This was brought to the forefront of my mind at Novelist Inc. because I met a couple authors. I felt like I already knew them because I had seen their books in my also bots. This is the area on Amazon, and now, to my delight, on Barnes & Noble Nook Books, where it will say people who bought this book, so like if you look at sign off for book one in my Caught Dead in Wyoming series, it will have the other books in the series on Amazon, and then it will have the section that says customers who bought this book also bought, and that's why we call them also bots. And the same thing on Barnes & Noble, below the little description, it will say, other people bought these books. So they're an indication, or can be an indication, of books that might appeal to people who liked your book. So we authors suspect that there's cross readership there. And that's always good. We like cross readership because we can't write as fast as you folks can read, which is one of the wonderful and frustrating aspects of being an author. I wish I could write as fast as I could read, as you guys can read. It just takes longer. And so also bots are talked about and can also cause sort of strange social situations at conferences where you go, oh, And like, you know the person and they give you this totally blank look because they have no idea. You've never met in person before. And yet I know them from my also bots. So, yeah. I'm trying to think, did I harass anybody at this? Um, I did. Melissa F. Miller, although she was very gracious about it. And Melissa also writes mysteries. So she shows up in my also bots. We're also bot buddies. I guess that's what you can say. Okay, so I'm wrapping up this week's edition of Authors Love Readers. Next week, we should be back with a combo episode where you will be shocked to know that some of the guests and I talk longer than the amount of time we've designated for the show. So, wonderful editor Dylan is putting together some combo shows for you so we don't lose that wonderful material, so we can share it with you from numerous guests. So, I hope you come back next week and enjoy that episode. And then we'll be back to the more usual interview formats for our episodes. In the meantime, have a great week of reading, and we'll see you next week. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.